definite shift in businesses redefining their benefits package as a result of all of this?
Yes, I
And
have.
are there any new benefits that are kind of you've gone, oh, that's a good idea?
Okay. Yes, I have. And the reason I say that is because a lot of companies come to us to do some benefit auditing, which I think some of the audience probably have, salary surveys and so on. And quite often they'll come and say, okay, what are our competitors or what is the norm for out there, be it holidays, pension, etc. We're noticing that holiday entitlement and allowance is going up. A lot of our companies are now going, it used to be a minimum of 20 days, yeah, plus bank holidays. A lot are now going to 22, if not 25 days. Pension contributions there as well. But it's also this sort of, a lot of them are giving obviously well-being. That's another thing which I actually got from one of our clients. We give 2 well-being days a year, and I think some of the audience have now honed in on that, 2 extra well-being days a year with a bit of cash to go and do something lovely. If you're I'm not any sexist here, but the girls usually go to a spa and the boys usually play golf, vice versa. The unlimited holidays is beginning to be talked about as well. I still don't think we are ready at all to have that in our sector. Hybrid working, we know it exists, we know it's out there. We don't need to keep talking about it because we've been talking about it since the pandemic. Hybrid working, yeah, absolutely. That's what most candidates are looking for. Some are looking for remote, although many of our clients really want their staff in for some time of the week. I think the well-being is one. I think the unlimited holidays is another. And then the usual benefits, be it bonuses, pension, healthcare, gym membership, it's pretty standard now. But the one I have noticed is the holiday entitlement increasing.
Yeah.
Have you got any to add to that, Ami? Because obviously you liaise with a lot of the same clients as we do,
Yeah, I think the only
and looking,
one that you've not really mentioned is salary sacrifice, the
of
EV
course.
cars, and all of those.
Of course, and I should have. Sorry, I haven't even got any notes today. I'm going ad lib and freestyling. Yeah, salary sacrifice for EV cars. Absolutely, more
Yeah.
companies are doing that. Yeah,
I have to say I'm seeing an increase in salary sacrifice, but I'm also seeing an increase in travel benefits. So, pools of money for people to go on holidays and actually, that kind of, take use of that. So staff travel benefits seem to be back on
yeah.
the increase, and they did take a dip. So I think, a lot of companies continued with that, but some did drop them. And I think a lot of people forget, and I've said this so many times, that the reason people love working in travel, or one of the main reasons
They
people
travel.
travel, is
They
that
love
we
to
love to
travel.
travel. So taking the benefits of that. So
And
I am seeing an increase back in that with the people I work with.
just
But
one thing to add, one
yeah,
thing more to add before we go on to Ami is incentive trips internally. I've noticed that quite a lot with some of our business partners. They are team building, taking their teams away. Um, if it's a high-end luxury company, they're managing to go to some lovely places. But I'm noticing that more and more with a lot of our companies,
it's good. It's good
which
to
has been
hear.
nice.
So things are still moving positively in that
I
direction.
would say so, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm quietly optimistic for this year as well. We've got a really good hold of the hiring plans for with our business, with our clients, so we know what's going on because you never know what's around the corner. I think Pigs has been pretty good. I think so. Yeah, I think this year it's going to be interesting. I do think we're still going to have a good year from a recruitment and a hiring and an expanding point of view.
Great. Good to hear. Good to hear. Right. So thank you very much for that, Basha.
Pleasure.
It's always good to get that kind of like backdrop for it. I think that's important. So I want to then move on to Ami, and hopefully everybody is aware of the new Employment Rights Act. And if you're not, you've obviously been hiding in a cave somewhere. But this year we are seeing some major changes coming through, which is starting in April, which, let's face it, January's already gone. So we've literally got 8 weeks before April is upon us, or 9 weeks. And then we're going to see further changes in October. So, Ami, I don't know when you want to run the polls, but if you want to do one now, but I know you've got some slides to present, and I'll hand over to you. Bash and I will comment probably towards the end of it if we feel we have anything to add. But please do, as Basha said just now, please do put your own comments in the chat and ask some questions. I will be moderating them to make sure that we try and answer as many of your questions as possible, because obviously there is quite a lot to go through. So without further ado, Ami, over to you.
Thank you very much. Owen, can you help me with that poll, please, before I start off? Because I have no idea where it is. I'm not the most IT savvy, so I'm already getting stressed about sharing my screen for the slides. There we go. Okay, so if we end that poll, it looks like some of you have been working hard, getting ahead of the game, but the vast majority have not really done much as of yet, and that may be because of the uncertainty still as to when things are going to come in and whatnot. But hopefully, when I walk you through my talk, which I'm going to have slides for, all will become a little bit more clearer. So that said, let me pull up the slides. Right, can we all, Claire, can you just tell me you can see those slides?
Yes, you can see that absolutely fine, Ami.
Okay, brilliant. So the Employment Rights Act 2025. I think it was the 18th of December last year that this basically got royal assent. And so it's going to trickle through this year and probably going into next year. Sorry, I'm just trying to, there we go. So there's a lot that's happening, some major changes, some minor changes which shouldn't really impact your business too much. And I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of what we know. Some of the dates may change. It's the predicted dates that we've got at the moment. Some of the detail will also change because some of it is going to go out for further consultation. So I'm going to focus predominantly on the unfair dismissal changes, which are massive. We're going to talk a bit about 0 hours, and then we're going to wrap up with some of the other changes as well. So when Labour were basically canvassing, they had their manifesto, and some of these changes were part of that. There was talk of day one unfair dismissal rights, so on and so forth. That hit the headlines, but that hasn't been the case. So just going to talk about the Employment Rights Act. I've been practicing employment law for over 25 years. I started when I was 2. This is the biggest change in employment law that I've ever known, and it is going to be a generational change in employment law. It's widened its scope, and also there will be a Fair Work Agency that will be introduced to ensure compliance with the changes and issue penalties and even bring employment tribunal claims. The impact on the business, there is going to be impact on the business, but it can be navigated and it can be managed if you're prepared and if you've done your due diligence. And hopefully by the end of this session, you'll have a little bit more of an idea as to what you need to be working on now, what you can pause on and what you can start thinking about. But let's start with unfair dismissal, because this is the biggest one. So we've always had a qualifying service for unfair dismissal. We've had that for the last 50 years. At its highest, that qualifying service is 2 years, and that tends to be under a Conservative government. At its lowest, it's been 6 months, and that tends to be under a Labour government, and it yo-yos depending on who is in power. So Labour were very clear that it was going to become a day one unfair dismissal right. That went to the House of Lords, who pushed back, and there has been a U-turn here from the government. It's not going to be a day one right. There will be a 6-month qualifying service for that. So that's quite a shift, but that effectively means, what do employers need to do? Well, look at your probationary periods, because if they're only 3 months at this moment in time, I would suggest that you increase those to 6 months. And also bear in mind that 3-month probationary periods have traditionally been in play. May have worked when everyone was attending the office regularly and you could monitor and review and supervise. But with remote working, with hybrid working, you're not seeing people as often as you once did. So they're probably out of date anyway. But with this new law that's going to come in, probably about this time next year, someone will have to have 6 months qualifying service. Those 6 months, in my view, should be a probationary period. And what it means is you're going to have to review your probationary periods, how you manage them, how you use them as an effective tool, because there's no point in just mentioning it in a contract of employment and then the week before it's due to expire thinking, oh, are we going to pass somebody's probation? Are we not? The window for you to work out whether somebody is suitable long-term in your organisation is now 6 months. Traditionally, if any one of you called me with a query about an individual, one of the first questions I would ask you is, how long have they been employed for? Because if it was less than 2 years, then it would become significantly easier to deal with them. So, that said, the other big change that's going to come as a result of that is the number of employment tribunals is going to increase quite significantly. I think the estimates are that there will be an additional 9,000 claims made to ACAS pre-claims conciliation, which is the requisite mandatory step before you can bring an employment tribunal claim. Of those now 9,000 that go to ACAS, it's probably going to result in about 3,000 ending up in the employment tribunal. The issue with that is right now the employment tribunal is severely strained in terms of its resources. There are massive backlogs. I've got claims that were issued in January of this year are not going to get to a final hearing until December 2027. So that's, quite significantly down the line, nearly 2 years down the line. The tribunal system simply does not have enough resources to manage the current caseload, never mind any increases that will come. They are actively trying to recruit employment judges, but only time will tell as to how that's going to pan out. The other massive change that's going to come into play, we don't know when, but we think it's likely at the same time as the qualifying period reducing. So January, possibly even October of this year, is that currently unfair dismissal damages are limited. They are limited to either a year's salary or a maximum of £118,223. That cap will go. So traditionally, what happened was that individuals who were bringing an unfair dismissal claim, they tried to tag on a discrimination claim as well to make the case not only more complicated and harder to deal with, but also because discrimination damages are unlimited. So it was to increase the value of their claim. One thing that might come out of this is that discrimination claims won't just be raised for the sake of having unlimited damages. It might just crystallise and focus individuals onto the actual issues of their claim. The parameters of how a tribunal assess compensation for loss of earnings is still going to be the same. There's still going to be a duty on individuals to mitigate their loss. And that means you basically can't just sit back and relax and wait for a payout for the employment tribunal. You have to actively go and find another job and provide evidence of that. And also, if somebody's got another job by the time the employment tribunal hearing comes around, which I'm hoping it will, that's a good chunk of 2 years, then again, that's going to have a knock-on impact on loss of earnings. So we can answer questions. You can ask questions and I'll try and answer them at the end of my presentation. I just want to move on to 0 hours because there's been a lot of talk about 0 hours and that they were going to be completely banned from the workplace. They were abusive because vulnerable individuals, namely on low income, couldn't have an uncertainty of work, and it was creating the balance of power between the employer and these individuals on these 0-hour contracts was very much in favour of the employer. So they're not going to be banned, but they are going to be more rigorously enforced and managed. So at this moment in time, you don't have to guarantee hours under a 0 hours contract. Moving forward, once they've been engaged on a 0 hours contract for 12 weeks, we think, which is going to be the reference period, there will be an obligation on the employer to provide guaranteed hours, which is okay if there's ongoing work. But if you think about it, particularly in our industry with seasonal work, they may only be needed for the summer season of 12 weeks. And after that, we can't guarantee them hours because there's no future work. So the issue of seasonal workers is something that has been pushed back and is going out for consultation. So watch this space in respect of that. At the moment, under 0 hours contracts, sometimes shifts are cancelled at very short notice or no notice at all. There will be a reasonable notice period that's going to become mandatory. I don't have the detail of that just yet. And following on from that, at this moment in time, the shift is cancelled. Tough luck. There's no real compensation. But moving forwards, there will be payments for short notice cancellations. So that said, the whole area of change with regard to 0 hours workers is essentially to prevent contract manipulation and balance out the power in that regard. So other key reforms, and it's a whistle-stop tour of them, because if I went through all of them in a lot of detail, you guys would still be sat here at 2 o'clock this afternoon. As of April this year, there will be day one rights to SSP, so it starts from day one. The lower level of earnings is also going to be removed, and paternity leave and unpaid parental leave will have no service requirements. At the moment, some of them require 26 weeks or a year's service. They will become a day one right. That isn't really going to change the landscape because a lot of them are unpaid anyway. And my recommendation to you is, if you haven't reviewed your policies, do this now, be ahead of the curve. The likelihood of someone asking for paternity leave or unpaid leave in the next 3 or 4 months is going to be slim to none. And it shows that you're proactive and doing things because you want to be an employer of choice, rather than being mandated to do it because the legislation's changed. Similarly so, changes to unpaid bereavement leave, and includes for pregnancy loss before 20 weeks. Implement this change now. Why wait for the government to tell you to do it? Most employers probably are quite flexible and compassionate if that sort of unfortunate situation arises. The other one is strengthened flexible working rights. So it's important to clarify that whilst individuals have a right to request flexible working, and that became a day one right back in 2024, it doesn't mean they have the right to work the flexible working. They only have the right to request it. However, it is going to become more harder for employers to reject requests for flexible working. And if they are going to reject it on one of the 8 statutory prescribed reasons, they're going to have to provide reasonableness in their decision-making process. So to summarise, organisations, you all need to update your HR systems, your contracts, your policies, and I would start looking at those now. The other one that I want to mention as well, and I don't want to focus too much on this because we've already had separate sessions about sexual harassment in the workplace. We know that since October of 26th of October 2024, there is now a duty on all employers, irrelevant of size, to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace. The duty is to take reasonable steps. Under this legislation, the Employment Rights Act, there will be one very small but very powerful word that is added, and it will be the duty to take all reasonable steps. So if you haven't rolled out training to your staff on sexual harassment, if you haven't got a policy in place. If you're not doing audits and risk assessments, then I strongly recommend that you start with that project sooner rather than later. So, when is all of this coming in? The earliest changes were actually going to be in February of this year, and that relates to industrial action dismissal protections. You used to have to basically have industrial action for 12 days. That will become a day one right. And there's a whole raft of changes in relation to unions, which I haven't focused on too much, but effectively in terms of recognition of unions, it's going to be a lot easier. The threshold for recognition is going to be between 2 and 10% as opposed to 40%. But we can talk about that in a separate session if needs be. The day one rights, SSP reforms, they're all going to be April of 2026, which ties in with the new financial year. The unfair dismissal qualifying period and reduced compensation cap being removed. We think best guess is January of next year. It might be the autumn of this year, but all we can say is watch this space. But that doesn't say, because it's in a year from now, that we sit back and just relax to see how it pans out. Start looking at your probationary periods, review your contracts. So, Claire, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to give you the floor in case there are any questions.
There have been a couple of questions, and I'm sure there will be some more. So I'm going to start with Christian. Asked, am I right in understanding that anyone hired prior to June will still be under the previous rule of 2 years, but anyone hired from July onwards will be 6 months?
Honest answer is we don't know, but my view is it can't be retrospective and it's got to be only once the legislation has come in. So I think it will be that qualifying service only applies to people who are employed, let's say, from the 1st of January 2027 onwards.
Okay, so my question is, though, if you have someone that you hire in October this year, by January 27, they'll have done their bit 4 months. So I guess maybe that's just sort of segueing on from Christians. Would they therefore still be under their previous 3 months probation, and therefore sorry, I should have maybe made it so that that 3 months bit is the cutoff hasn't happened when the new legislation comes in.
If someone starts in October of this year, they've got 3 months, and ideally their probationary period should be 6 months for the reasons I've explained. Okay, so they will still be under their probationary period in the new year because they'll only have had October, November, December. But that's different to the qualifying right for unfair dismissal, which my view is the 6 months have to be post 1st of January 2027.
Okay, thank you. But that could change, right? So we just got to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, exactly. And the date could change as well. So
yeah, okay. Thank you for that. So I think this is to do with the 0 hours changes. Carl's asked, what about shifts that have to be cancelled at short notice due to circumstances outside of our control? So, for instance, as he quotes, due to poor weather.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? That even if you've got an excuse, there's going to be reasonable notice provisions in change of shifts, is my understanding from that. It doesn't matter what the reason is for the change in shift. If you've cancelled it at short notice, then those penalties will apply.
However, as you just said, if it's deemed to be reasonable, right? So this is reasonable is one of those, you and I have just debated this many a time. What is reasonable in each circumstance?
Exactly, yeah. And we're waiting to see. And I don't think they can give strict guidance on that because it's going to differ from business to business, isn't it?
Yeah. And you're going to have, acts of God, aren't you? And all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Okay. All right. No, that's good. And actually kind of slightly segueing on from that, Melissa's asking, and this is the point you made about the change to the sexual harassment duty, is what is the difference, in your own words, between reasonable steps and all reasonable steps? And we've spoken about this a lot, I know. So
unfortunately, the word reasonable does not have a legal definition, which is not helpful. Okay. So reasonable is, what would it be reasonable in this situation for you to have done? All reasonable steps is is that if there's anything that you possibly could have done that you haven't done, then you won't be complying with that duty. So it's a much higher burden and it's a much more onerous burden. So yes, it's a very small, very powerful word. So it's basically going to change from what we think is fair in the circumstances that you should have done to you must have done everything in your power to stop it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And actually, I think our the session we did last year on this was it will have some word, won't we, on our LinkedIn that people can
Yes.
refresh on that. So with all of that, so that we might repost that at some point, I would suggest. Okay, so you've already given your opinion about your sort of recommendations about what employers you recommend employers should be doing. So I guess my thing is, yes, there's what they should be doing, but actually, what do they absolutely have to do right now?
And I'd like to know that, obviously, to give that information over to our clients, but also what I should be doing myself.
Yeah,
And
good
I'm sure
practice.
I'm not the only
Right.
one.
Right, let's deal with the change to sexual harassment. Okay, that duty's already in. You need to have provided training to your workforce. You need to have a policy in place. If you're sending off staff to God knows what, you need to do your risk assessments. You need to do auditing. So I'll give you some examples. Your Christmas party, your summer party, your client event, they are all extensions of the workplace. Okay. Here at Travlaw, we go to a lot of overseas conferences. That is an extension of the workplace. And when we did our risk assessment, we're not saying that the travel industry is notorious for sexual harassment, but you put things into the equation: overseas trips, alcohol, late nights, social events. We just gave the guidance of you don't have to drink, you don't have to be there at 1 o'clock in the morning to get new business in for, if don't get yourself in a one-on-one situation or in a strange environment that you're not comfortable with, have a port of call to ring in terms of if you do get into trouble. So it's those sort of things. It's not suggesting we kill all the fun out of industry events or that Basha has to go along and police her staff at every single event. That's not what we're saying. So that I don't think there is any excuse for not having done anything because it's been around since October of 2024. If anything, it's going to become even more harder moving forwards. So that's in relation to sexual harassment. In terms of the Employment Rights Act, is the legislation, you don't really have to do anything if you didn't want to, okay? You could just carry on as you are. Where you're going to come short is you're going to come foul of not managing your probationary periods, not reviewing them. So those are the sorts of things that you need to start to put into place now so that when the legislation comes in later down the line, it's second nature. It's not, oh, I thought our probationary periods were 3 months. Oh, someone's probationary period is going to expire next week. What should we do? Because it's going to be much harder. And it goes back to the point that I made right at the outset is with unfair dismissal rights, historically, you've had 2 years to work it out. Is it going to work? Is it not? Because until they've got the 2 year service, unless they've got a discrimination claim, it's very easy. You can pay their notice period and you can get rid. That 2 years has now come down to 6 months, and with hybrid, remote working, and everything else into the equation, it's not really 6 months of them seeing them every day, is it?
Absolutely. And I would add to that, and because I've been doing this with many of my clients, is actually just review the wording in your policies and your contracts. So if you think, and actually the critical one I think here is SSP, because I think a lot of contracts historically
Yeah.
have said day 4 you get your SSP, but actually it's that changing the wording, and I've always tried to future-proof contracts, but some are very historical with that within the qualifying period as as
Yeah.
per employment law. So actually just have a read
Yeah,
through.
I think it's now, if you've not had your contracts audited in the last sort of 6 months, so now is a good time to do them. We've already talked about probationary periods. SSP, your policy on flexible working probably needs to be updated given the legislative changes that have come into play. Your parental leave, your paternity leave, policies probably at the moment say that they have a qualifying service of X number of weeks. That will need to be updated. So it's best to do the handbook, which contains all the policies and the contracts, all at the same time, because we know what's coming, and we don't have to wait for those dates to come in, because the impact of some of them is going to be very minimal on businesses, because some are already doing it. It's just making sure that you're ahead of the curve and your policies look like they're up to date.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And I have a fact. This is my personal final question, and I mentioned I might ask you this if we had time, and we do, which is great. So I think people who are probably in HR here, but maybe some people who do keep up to date with it will be aware that there's consultation going on at the moment around non-compete clauses in contracts of employment. And this is always a massive challenge in our industry, because a lot of people do jump, they go to competitors quite naturally. And I'm sure the recruitment side, you see this all the time. But I guess,
100%.
whilst
It happens a lot,
yeah,
especially sort of mid to senior
yeah.
levels as well. Yeah.
So I guess I have two questions for you, Ami, is do you think they are still necessary? And if they are limited or indeed even banned outright, how can we as employers protect ourselves going forward from this? Because it's not just, going to work for a competitor, it's taking staff with you, it's nicking suppliers, it's all that sort of stuff. So what do what are your thoughts
Right.
on that?
Okay. So my thoughts on that is there was talk previously about them being banned. That's sort of gone into the backwater, I think. Everything else is overtaking it. Could this government ban them? Possibly. I don't think that they will. I think they've got bigger fish to fry at this moment in time. Are they necessary? Yes, absolutely. I see the fallout of them all the time, especially in our industry, where it's not like they leave travel and go to engineering, or they become they're a finance director, let's say in a travel company, and then become finance director in an engineering company. They tend to stay within the industry. That said, I do think they have a place, but they need to be very well drafted. Okay. And that is because the courts do not like them. They consider them a restraint of trade, and the starting point is that they are generally unenforceable. Okay. And that's why I'm saying they have to be well drafted. They need to go no further than is necessary. They need to protect a legitimate interest. Okay. If they are well drafted, yes, they will become enforceable. But I've lost count of the number of times where I've had clients ring me up and say, "Oh, so and so's gone to a competitor. We don't want that to happen." I might show me your contract, and there's nothing in there. So yes, they need to appear in there, if nothing else, as a scare tactic, right? The question of enforceability, I can count on one hand. Well, I can't even count on one hand the number of times we've ended up in litigation about it. But the number of times there is to and fro in terms of those restrictions is becoming quite common. So I'm not sure they will be banned. Is there still a place for it? Yes, absolutely. But you need legal advice on those. And I'm not just trying to create work for myself here, but that it's very hard to have those restrictions enforceable unless you know exactly what you can and cannot put in them.
Okay. Thank you. That's really useful to hear. And we have one final quick poll.
Sorry, Claire, just
yeah.
on that is another reason to get your contracts of employment updated.
Yeah. So as you say, now's the time to audit. Owen, could you quickly just launch our final quick poll? We're heading towards the end.
I can do it. I'm on there now.
Thank you.
You ready?
So based on everything Ami's just said, I think it'd be interesting to know about where you are at with these. We haven't really touched on AI, but I do think this is quite important. To see if people have actually, it's good to see.
Mm.
Well, I'm hoping after my little talk that certainly the first two, everyone's going to say, yeah, absolutely, we're planning on rolling out training. Otherwise, they haven't listened to a word I've said.
Well, good. The message is getting through, Abby. That's the important thing. But I think these are ongoing discussions to be had, aren't they? And we are at this critical period right now where we have that kind of too much to say. Let's audit. Let's have a look. Let's see what we're doing. And certainly I've been doing quite a bit of that in the last couple of months for clients, and probably will continue to do so. So thank you for that. Yeah, that's great. Great. Good to see that so many people are doing it. The use of AI in the workplace, I know, is a whole other topic, and one that we will be covering probably later this year. What we'd love to know from you all, though, is if there's any topics that you would like us to cover, please do. We always come up with our own ideas and suggestions. But please do just give us some suggestions in the chat before we go of topics you'd like to see us covered, maybe as a one-off special. But we have another question, which is great. So Kerry has asked, you mentioned a holiday pot as a benefit offered. Is this operated without companies having to pay the PSA tax or BOK? So if so, how? So Basha, do you want to bring on? Is there anyone else on the call who has that? So these are
we talking about a holiday pot, or because
yeah, so some companies say here's £500 towards a holiday, or here is, you can use one of our holiday, we'll give you a discount, or you get a free holiday, part of our from a tour operator's perspective.
And what did Kerry ask? Whether it's
Is it without? I mean, she's asking about tax, I guess,
implications right? Yeah,
that. And there will be different tax implications on that. So,
well, I can give. Sorry,
go on,
sorry.
Basha.
Yeah. We, as an employer, I'm purely talking as an employer rather than because all our different companies clients do lots of different things. But I know any extra benefits I give my team, be it the wellbeing days, and I pay money towards those, be it when I've taken my team away on incentive trips, happened for the last couple of years because of the buyout, but it will happen again, and I mentioned incentive trips earlier. We've had to pay, PSA's had to be, it's taxable. It's taxable. I don't know other companies, because I'm not a tour operator, I'm a travel company. It'd be quite interesting to see. Obviously, there's ways around it, isn't there? There's no one that tax people on here. It's a work trip, it's a conference, fam trip. I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see if any of our operators that do this, what they do and how they perhaps overcome it.
Okay.
Well, they'd probably overcome it by
learning journeys from Sharon.
Yeah, exactly. It's work related.
Yeah.
As soon as it's not work related, it's a benefit in kind and subject to.
But Sharon, Sharon, is that for fam trips or is that actually holiday pots? And if they just get.
We offer a learning journey every year to all of our team up to the value of £3,000, but we have very, very clear expectations of what they have to do. So they have to report back. They have to share all of their information. So it is a learning experience for them. And that way we avoid all the tax.
But I think
it's not just here's £3,000, go off on a holiday on the company, right? Yeah, absolutely.
And who pays the tax? I had to pay I paid the tax on those extra ones. But it'd be interesting to see if anyone actually does it as a pure holiday, not learning fan trip, not a learning experience. What happens there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a tax advisor, but I think that would be a benefit in kind.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I think it's
when we looked into it, it was. When we looked into it early days, it was.
Oh, sorry, Mark. Yeah.
Sorry,
thank you, Mark.
if you're giving anything as complimentary, be it any value to anything, is a benefit in kind. And someone mentioned early on the call about private healthcare. That also is considered benefit in kind,
it is.
Unless of course you're doing it as part of salary sacrifice scheme, which a lot of companies are doing now. And because with all due respect, people don't want to buy the new Tesla car, they don't want to buy the new Porsche Macan, but they do want a bit of extra benefit, whether that's an employee scheme somewhere along the line or actually a benefit in kind, not a benefit in kind, a salary sacrifice for pension contribution. So there are schemes out there that can do this.
That's a really good point, Mark.
So there's benefit, or you just go and work for a lovely boss like me, and then you're happy. There's no problems. There you go.
Exactly.
A winner.
I mean, I give healthcare to my guys via Vitality. It's a benefit in kind. It's a benefit in kind. So it appears on the P11Ds and so on.
Well, we tried offering that to staff, and then the minute I said, "Oh yeah, but we need to tax it on this part," they're like, "Oh no, I don't want that. I'll pay it myself."
Well, most of my staff are old now, like me, so they can see the benefit in having a healthcare scheme because they're getting creaky joints and they need to go for physio and so
And
on.
someone said earlier on that they're starting practicing something 25 years ago when they were two. I think I must have heard that wrong because yeah, there's not many youngsters in the kind of legal field, I don't think, that started it too. But I don't know. I don't know if
Well,
anyone would know any different.
Ami's always the exception to the rule, Mark. There you go. She's always the
Exactly. She's a
Trust
exception.
me.
lawyer.
I
Yeah.
know.
Mark,
I
just
know.
remember we have travel press on this call, so everything is going to be recorded and published.
Don't quote that, Jules.
Chatham House rules.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant. Thanks so much for that, Mark, and thank you, Sharon, for sharing that because you're quite right. It's about framing it right, and that's a really important point you made. And one final quick question. Nina's asked about this unlimited holidays. Now, I've got a little bit of experience with this, but if anyone here has got stuff they'd like to share, please do. I think it's got massive issues tied all over it because it's about how you manage because it's all about output, right? So if a member of staff is doing a really good job and they've got their output and everything else, then they can just go off on as many holidays as they like and you don't have a limit. The other thing is that then people might take their work with them and they just go and work abroad or wherever they're doing, which actually then is at holiday. So that's remote working. So there's all the issues around that and how you actually define what that means and are they truly on holiday? Because people need to be truly on holiday. They need to have that switch off, and that's really, really important. But I think, the other thing is also that some people, irrespective of giving them unlimited holiday, then don't take any holiday at all. And because you're not managing it, and that in itself has got the welfare and issue benefits, and actually is breaking the law. So, Amy, I'd be interested on your take on that.
So yeah, it's one of these trends, isn't it? And I think it only works if you can manage the output. So as a lawyer, if you've got a target, you have to bill X £100,000 or whatever it is. It's up to you, isn't it? Basically, as long as the work is being done and clients aren't suffering a detriment as a result, it could work. Tends to be used more by parents around school holidays and whatnot. But it comes down to an element of trust, doesn't it? What are the implications if they are not meeting their output targets? So it's a trend. Even when it's been offered by employers, I've not really seen a big, overusage of it at this moment in time. But yeah, if you've got targets and trust in place, then you're more likely to see it. If you haven't got those in place, then you're opening up a can of worms because it sounds great. And also the point that you mentioned about people just taking their laptop and working from Cyprus for 6 weeks. There's tax implications, there's jurisdictional implications, there's legal implications.
Yeah.
And from what I've gathered as well, from people I know that have it outside of the travel industry, it's the conscientious ones that don't take it, like you said, Ami, and the ones that probably take advantage of the really conscientious members of staff, and there's a real imbalance. I'd be interested to know if anybody here has unlimited holiday. Maybe just unmute yourself. No. Or do you know of anyone, Claire or Ami? Anyone in travel? We don't have to mention any company
Well,
name.
no. Mark's probably going to say I have unlimited holidays, but I don't.
He's got a point.
Yeah, trust
Owen
me,
will say the
she
same
is.
about me. We have a lot. But I wonder if there is anyone. Do you know of anyone, Claire? Because all the contracts you're doing.
No, well, I've now been historically, and I don't know if they still do, and please don't quote me on this, Jules. It's probably worth looking at, but I think Virgin Atlantic might have done it a few years ago.
Okay.
I'm not sure if they still do, or if it was another Virgin, Virgin Group company. For some reason, in the back of my head, Virgin Atlantic might have offered it, but whether or not they still do, as I said, so please don't say definitely that was them. No, I am not aware of it. And actually, my recommendation is always to talk to the staff, find out what it is, the benefits that they want. I actually do think the increased holiday, particularly, I think, linked to length of service is a really good one.
Yeah.
People like that benefits them, and that's seen as a real benefit. And then also just to segue slightly into what Mark was saying, some people, I was just about to say that, Sharon, holiday purchase salary sacrifice, that's becoming increasingly popular. But I think there is still this thing around productivity. So people are paid to do a job, and there has to be this balance on that as well. So I think we're going to see more productivity tools coming in. I think that's something that we're going to see an increase in as these sorts of things continue to be hot debates. But personally, if a client said to me, "What do I think about this as a benefit?" I would say, don't touch it. It's got too many issues.
Just to follow up on that, at this moment in time, I'm probably reviewing about 3 different companies' contracts and policies per week, and I've been doing for the last couple of months. It's not come across my desk once. Okay. And I think the other thing to think about as well is if you are offering unlimited holiday and then someone's taking summer off to look after children or whatever, and then it comes to pay rises and promotions, you've got to remember you can't discriminate against people, because that then comes into play that, well, I took it for childcare responsibilities or whatever. So it is a big can of worms. It's not as easy as what it says on the can.
Yeah.
It was the Virgin Group, but it only applied to 170 people. It was senior managers, and it was started in 2014. But I don't know if it's still in play at the moment. But and going on to what Ami just said there, it's difficult because it's just, if you go down to your normal working pattern for leave, if somebody sees someone having 3 weeks off over summer to look after the kids, then someone will say, well, I haven't got kids, but why can't I have 3 weeks off? And then another male then goes, oh, well, so-and-so has it off, why can't I have it off? And it really is a fine line then of balancing operational needs for the business, but also working around the staff policy as well. So if you have a policy, I think you just enforce it. An easy way to do it, I think Labour should bring in, is no holidays at all, and then everyone doesn't have to problem then, do they?
Go back to the 20th, early 20th century.
Yeah, why not?
We fought hard for it.
Exactly.
Right, Juliet, you can quote that. Mark Smith, Simplexity Travel Management, holiday should be banned for all staff.
There we go.
Thank you.
I'm ready for signing books as well later.
That would make our job of finding people very difficult.
Listen.
First question: salary, holidays.
Yeah, absolutely.
There we are.
Listen, we're back.
Isn't it working from home? Isn't it working from home? The first question now.
It's up there, Mark. Yeah, it's how many days in the office?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, everybody. We're bang on 12 o'clock, so we're gonna finish there. But please do let us know if there's any topics you'd like to see us covered in future webinars. It's lovely to see you all as always. Happy February as of next week, everyone. And I hope peaks have been good to you. Be great to catch up with you all at some point during the year personally. But yes, thank you so much for your attention today, and we will see you very soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.